All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about our week 2 assignment. It's called the ARM build. Now this assignment is actually pretty long, so we're going to go over it just slowly, and hopefully you guys will get it. So the goal of the assignment is basically we're going to animate 2 pieces or 3 pieces, depending on what your design of your arm is. You're going to do 3 actions, for example. 1 action, profile of the arm, 1. Second action could be, and then third action could be something like that. So you're going to pick 3 actions. You're going to design an arm. We're going to utilize everything we've learned. We're going to design arm symbols, hand symbols, hand pegs, and arm pegs. And in each symbol, we're going to design various instances according to our action. So you don't have to draw like 20 hands in your library. Only draw the hands that you actually need. So for this, what we're going to do first is we're going to start with sketches. So I'm going to split this up into 3 different views so you guys can get an overview of what we're looking at. So the first thing is I'm going to draw the timeline. We'll use purple here. Actually, start reading off with the sketch. Our timeline. And then we're going to show you, this will be our, actually, before I do the sketch, if you guys decide you want to do your sketches on Photoshop or even on your actual sketchbook, feel free to do so. The thing is, with the sketches, we can assign every single frame one particular sketch. If I were you, I would try to get used to sketching in Harmony. There is a bitmap mode that you can use to draw like opacity stuff, and then switch it back when you actually design your drawings for symbols to vector things. So I'll show you the sketch, for example, that we'll do. I'll use orange here. So first off, you got to design your build. So let's say I just rough this out, and I had an arm. And then I'm just going to keep mine simple. Feel free to go nuts on yours. So let's say I designed an arm. That's the first step. What you want to think about is what you want this arm to do. So I'm just going to do 1 action for now. I'm going to do an antic, back, and then point. So I'm just going to sketch out my end action, or my end pose here that I want to do. Simple enough. Okay, so I have my start pose and my end pose for my sketch. So this pretty much gives us our design and allows us to start thinking about breaking it down into symbols. So in my sketch here, frame 1, you would see this instance here, and then this would be my frame 2 instance. So on the timeline, you'll see 2 drawings there. Okay, so the second step, what we have to do is break things down. we're going to have to basically create different hand symbols that represent, different symbols that represent the hand. And for this example, I'm just going to break it into one arm, because I'll show you a trick later on with rigging, depending on your design. This particular design, it's going to move organically. So I'm going to show you guys how to use a deformer for this particular hand. If you design a robotic hand with 3 pieces, you can do that too. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a hand symbol. So this will be my hand. So my hand, basically once you have your sketch here, all you have to do is throw another peg on top, and I'll show you that on the network here. And try to keep it in color code so we don't get confused. So this is my hand and my sketch. And this is my composite. All right. So for my hand drawing, I'll use green here. I'm basically going to set another layer on top. And just to clarify things though, if you put your hand on the left, it's actually going to appear on top of this timeline here. So this would actually be hand up here. And this would be sketch. Okay, so once you have your sketch, you're going to put another drawing on, or symbol on top, and then just trace it. And just like Flash, what you want to do is you want to make sure you draw past the art. So in this case, I want to draw past that wrist area, because if you rotate your wrist, you're not going to want that art to disappear, similar to Flash. So just draw past that area. So once we have our first drawing instance in our library, we should have a hand that looks like this for instance 1. Okay, this is instance 1. So once we have that, I'm going to start building the arm. So once again, I'm going to do another drawing here. I guess I'll wedge it in between here for now. Actually, I'll put it in front. I'll do arm. And that's going to push everything down. So it's going to be... Sorry for those of you who already drew this on your sketch up here, but basically it's going to be arm, hand, and then sketch. Okay. Just get rid of these dashes. So our arm, once again, we're going to just trace this. I'll use purple. Try to keep your lines clean. Remember, you're using line art now. You can either use the align tool, the pen, or like how I like to clean up, use the box and just manipulate the lines with the contour editor. There we go. So now we have two different symbols. We have the arm symbol now, and that's represented in our library like this. Okay. Any questions so far? We have our arm, we have our hand, and then we have our sketch. These are all blue symbols so far. The third thing we want to do is we want to introduce a peg for each one of these. So this would be arm underscore P, hand underscore P. Sketch, you don't need a peg for your sketch, so you should be fine there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is after we have our symbols set, you can go ahead and add to your symbols. So, for example, our hand symbol, we can add another drawing to it. And I'm going to add this drawing here. So this drawing is a cleanup version of my sketch. And it's of a pointing hand. Okay? So now I have two drawings. Now make sure when you do actually design the drawings, if you're in the drawing mode, designate a layer for that drawing, whether it's a line art. Usually line art is pretty standard. Line art, color art, overlay, underlay. You have 4 layers to choose from. Make sure all your drawings are on the same layer. So if you're drawing hands, make sure they're all on the same line art layer or whatever. The reason is because if you have to introduce something else in your layer, you want it to be on a separate layer. So for example, if I had a hand that was holding something, let's say we had a hand holding something. So let's go back to my lollipop example here. Okay, so if I had a hand holding a lollipop, well, and the lollipop was, let's say, curved or bent over like this. For some reason, he's holding it like this. Doesn't make any sense, but let's say he's holding it like this. Okay? So let's say he's holding it like this, or she's holding it like this. If you assign all your drawings on one layer, well, we can easily find the actual drawing on the line art layer. So let's say this is on the line art layer. The addition of the overlay layer, we can place on the overlay of the drawing. So if this was the overlay layer, line art layer, and we can ignore the other layers for now since we're not using it. I'll draw the box smaller. Your hand would basically be here. And then your overlay layer would basically just be the knuckles and this part of the thumb. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So, can I erase all this? Is everybody cool with this for now? Just hit pause on the video and I think you should be fine. I'm just going to erase this for now and we're going to start animating. So the idea is once you set your main keys for your drawings, you can go ahead and block out your action. So basically, I'm going to have 2 keys here. My first key, and this is going to be on my timeline here. My first key will basically be a rested hand position. So this is key 1. My second key, just put it over here. Is a pointed straight arm position. So I got my 2 keys in. Actually, when you're designing this, I forgot to talk about pegs. more in depth. When you design your hand, so let's say you're pointing your hand here. So when you're actually designing your hand and you assign a peg to it, be sure, and I'll show you this in the video, to select the parent, associate pivot points to parent, and that will be in your options box in your actual symbol drawing, the yellow box. You want to activate that because the minute you create a peg on top, you can assign both the peg and the actual symbol to share the same pivot point. You're going to find an icon that looks like this. To set your pivot point. So once you select your peg for your hand drawing, for example, you're going to look for this icon. You can find it on top of the timeline. I'll show you in the video. Once you select this, this icon here, it's going to give you basically what looks like that on your camera stage, and you're going to move that pivot point to where you need it. Once you set that, or if you want to set that, once you place it where you want, you're going to select the free transform tool just to set it. This is usually the tool you want to use. This is just on your tool panel selection box. So under tool panels, just select this just to set it. And then again, when you're drawing your future instances, you want to utilize this pivot point here. So my first hand, for example, would be drawn like this. You want to utilize where that pivot is. Okay? That makes sense? Okay. So once you have your first key and your second key, what you want to do is you want to do breakdowns. Sorry, I'm just going to erase this. So your breakdown poses, I'll just call it B1. So your breakdown poses are basically what you need to in between, but there's a slight change in it. So whenever somebody talks about breakdown, it's basically, if this was a straight tween from here to here, a breakdown is something that changes shape along the way that a computer won't be able to do. So as my hand comes up, it's going to drag a little bit, my arms are going to bend. So this would be my breakdown. Any questions on that? Breakdowns? Good? Okay. So once we have our starting, our breakdown, and our end position, I'm just going to block this out here. So let's say our start, our breakdown. Don't draw this yet because I'm going to slide stuff over. And our second. So once you have this, on your timeline, it should be basically frames 1, 2, and 3. Because you want to toggle between each one. After you do this, the next thing you do is you can start in-betweening. And the in-between logo, for some reason, looks like this, I think. It's like almost like an S curve with a dot. I'm going to verify this before I draw it up for you here. Okay, yeah. So it's like an SS logo like that. Something like that. It looks really ugly. You'll see it in the video. Something like that. It's like an S with 2 lines on top. So once you have your drawing, so let's say you wanted to tween from here to here, all you have to do, we're going to slide it across the timeline here. So we'll go to, let's say, frame 3, and you can slide this around again later. We're going to tween from our breakdown to our, from our first to our breakdown, and you're going to hit Control, I think it's K. So Control K basically creates this tween. And like every animation software, it's basically going to go from here. How many frames? We got 2 frames. So from here, 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 and here. Completely even timing. So your timing is going to look like this as a default. So what you want to do after you create your keys, I just want to find the icon and draw it properly for you. So actually this is the actual ease icon. The tweens, all you have to do is set your F keys, or sorry, F6 to set your keys, and then Control K on the first key to set your tween. Afterwards, you find this funny looking icon here, and that's going to set your ease parameters. And I'll show you on the video how that works, but the idea is that you want to set your ease properly. In this action here, what we're going to do is we're going to start it off slow and bring it up fast. So in order to get that, what we want to do is we want to set the timing like this. We want to favor this position here, so we'll start off slow and then end fast. Okay. We're going to tween this position to this position next. We're going to hit tween. It's going to give us even timing again. We're going to hit this funny looking icon, and we're going to adjust the timing for this. So for this, as something speeds up, I usually leave the timing. The only thing is if it slows down at the end there, we want to ease to the end of this timeline. So what I'll do is I'm going to favor the timing to here. Like that. Okay. So it's going to favor this timing over here. The last key is basically a duplicate of this key. I'm just going to call it, this will be your settle key, and I'll name it, I think it'll be like frame 10 or something. So your settle key is going to be identical to your last key. Okay. I'm going to change this actually, just so we can synchronize with this over here. 1, 2, 3. This will be your second drawing. And then this will be your last one over at number 10. So this will be okay. So the idea here now is because these are identical, we're going to go back to this key and use this as our overshoot. So right now, this is what we have so far. So right now, this is frame 6 and frame 10. We're going to go to frame 6, and we're going to overshoot this a little bit more. So we're just going to stretch it out a little bit more here. It's going to be hard to see because there's not going to be much of a difference. So I'm going to exaggerate it just a little bit. Okay, so the idea is this is your overshoot now, and then this will be your settle. Okay, and then I'll name all this. This will be start or rest. Breakdown. overshoot setup. And on here, we'll leave that there. I'll do the breakdown here. This is your overshoot. And this is your setup. And then your timing on your timeline would be like this. Right at the end, your settle timing will be like this. So this is basically your typical action move. So you start off resting position, you go up and then overshoot settle. That's it. So that's like one move in your assignment. If you want, you can add an anticipation to this by simply moving your timeline over and adding an antic pose here. Actually, sorry, it's not right. Your antic would be right before here, or right after your rest. Okay. Rest, antic, and then everything else would slide over. Does that make sense? So now our action could be like rest, antic, overshoot, settle. Cool. So that's our assignment for this week. I'm going to break down everything on the video a little bit more. And I just want to make sure I covered everything. Oh yeah, this is an important thing. There's a button called animate on Harmony. It's a yellow running man. Make sure when you're, before you start moving pegs around that that is selected. My first job that I had, I posed out everything so well, and then I went to frame 2, then I posed out everything so well, and I went back, and it was gone. There's a usage for that. It's when you want to move the entire timeline. Let's say my whole character is already animated, but I want to move my character physically from here to here, and keep all that animation. That's when you would turn off your animate button. But for now, when you're moving these pegs around, make sure that yellow animate button is turned on. A good way to know is if you're selecting your peg and it's not yellow, something's wrong. So make sure when you select your peg on the camera view, you have a yellow bounding box, and then you should be good to go. What else do I need to talk about? I think that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna end the video here, and if you have any further questions, I hope the other videos will help solve that. Any questions? We're good? Cool. Thanks. So remember last year when I talked